Good evening, everyone. Welcome to panel discussion, for first panel discussion of 2024. This is going to be a special one, and we thought, why don't we start with the great topic in January to kick off the session, right? So the topic today is, how do you make customer satisfaction an attainable goal? Because we all know how important it is to have a customer satisfied customer, and how are we going to catch how satisfy your customers are, and what are the different ways and techniques that we can do it, and what are the different newer way of doing it and things like that, and given the newer technologies, products and services and everything, right? So I'll give a brief introduction about the topic with some stats, and then introduce the panelists, and then we'll get this started. There are a lot of studies done in this area. So one of the three stats that I'm going to highlight here is a report by American Express that states happy customers are willing to spend 17% more on average for a product or service. That's a big number, 17% more, right, on average. So that's a good to know. And the other one is Nielsen study reported that 92% of consumers trust recommendations from friends and family over advertising. So this is like a lot more going to be related to the panelist also today, what we are going to discuss. But this statistics is really nailing that point here. 92% of consumers trust recommendations from family and friends. That's a big number. And a World Economic Forum highlighted that customer satisfaction is vital for international competitiveness, right? So it is not just the individuals, it's not just the companies and corporate, it is the countries. They have started talking and then thinking in this way: how can we stay competitive? How can we satisfy the customers and they come back to us, and so we can stay competitive in the world, right? So it's getting a lot more interesting, and it will evolve, and it will continue to evolve, right? Because as we have new features and products introduced, and there's going to be a new way of satisfying the customers, and the customers' expectations also goes up and things like that. So let's dive into this interesting topic with three great panelists we have here, right? First, let me welcome Karan Gupta. Karan is a senior manager handling service delivery at Matson Kumar. He's a visionary and result-driven client-centric professional with a close to decade of experience in driving business revenue growth. Karan has extensive experience in a wide range of outsourced industries. He drives operational excellence and customers in the middle of everything. So as dealing with outsourcing is not easy, and you have to handle a lot of different scenarios that are ad hoc and everything, things like that. So he has a ton of experience in dealing with this. So we are very happy to welcome you as part of this panel, Karan.
Happy to be here.
Same. So next panelist, Vinay Kanchi. Vinay is currently a Chief Operations Officer at Mondi Tech. His focus has been in customer service, operations, and strategy in the outsourcing and captive space. He has been instrumental in setting up successful delivery sites in multiple countries like Philippines, India, China, Canada, and various other countries. He believes in ensuring employee satisfaction, customer satisfaction, NPS, and revenues with a strong bottom line. Prior to Mondi, he had stints with Novia, Fairportal, Datamatics, Interglobe, WNS, Airtel, and Philips. Thank you for being part of this. Vinay, welcome to this panel discussion.
Thank you, and delighted to be here today evening.
So the last but not least, Pramod Mohandas. So Pramod is a product head with over 10 years of experience, scaling products, leading teams, and solving business problems through digital solutions. He had stints with TCS, Hidden Brains Infotech, and Lead School, and is currently with Ring. He's worked closely with the CX team to gather feedback and insights to enhance the product to meet customer needs better. He firmly believes that customer satisfaction is everyone's responsibility, and his product management philosophy revolves around the customers. He is an award-winning public speaker, distinguished Toastmaster. Welcome to this panel, Pramod.
Absolutely excited and looking forward to this.
Okay, so now let's dive into this discussion. This, how do you make customer satisfaction an attainable goal? So to get into this, right? So we have 5 discussion points, and then we'll get this kickstart the discussion, right? So first, Karan, we will start with you. When it comes to understanding the customer expectations, what methods and strategies do you employ? And do you rely on surveys, feedback mechanisms, or data analytics to understand what your customers truly want? Could you provide a real-time experience, like an example, how you use any of these methods and that helped you, your organization meet the customer expectations?
Sure. So I will start probably by a small overview to the topic, right? Customer experience or customer success is a very broad and diverse topic that if we kind of just talk about it, that we need to improve the customer experience, that's going to be a thing in the cloud, right? In order to be actually able to identify how we can and what experience are we talking about, we need to first drill down as to what is the experience factor, what elements impact it, and out of them, which one is our 80-20? So Pareto principle dictates that 80% of the problems can be or rather, yes, 80% of the problems can be addressed by looking at 20% of the major driving factors, right? So the idea is that we need to first identify as a customer, before we launch any product or any service or any experience that we are kind of looking to provide to any end user. It is important to first off be able to identify how we would respond to that product experience or service if we are at the receiving end of it, right? And of course this is going to be a very generic thing that I'm talking about right now, and because I will further elaborate via an example, but the idea is simple. We need to first identify what the customer requirements are. Therein there are 3 segments that we have to bucket it under. First is tolerance, which is the most basic thing, right? What can the customer tolerate? What level of quality can he tolerate? Thereafter, you have the expectation part, which is what is the customer's expectation that this is what will make me feel happy, or this product or service will be a part of my household if they meet this benchmark. And the third and the final is the idealistic, probably approach or idealistic thought that we as a company will have towards an experience or service, right? While we understand that every organization works to meet the idealistic benchmark, it is important to always meet the customer benchmark at all times, right? So we have specification limits in every product, right? The idea is we need to meet specification limit every single time in order to be able to kind of continue and grow people, that is grow customers. If any organization is coming to the tolerance part, then that's a problem. That any customer that goes to the tolerance level should be a big red flag to kind of address immediately. So how do we control or optimize customer experience is always going to be driven by what is impacting it. Now, before we, if a customer is getting impacted, of course, an RCA will be required, R&D will be done. Identification of the factors that are leading to the impact will have to be identified and addressed. But this is done in 3 levels, right? When you're launching a product, you don't focus on what will be the customer's tolerance. You focus on what will the customer's expectations and how can you meet it. Now, as an organization, it's important to have set SOPs as well as outlying methodologies completely illustrated that, for an example, I'll just kind of quote one of the personal examples from an organization that I worked with previously. We're going to the launch for a big software update. What that meant was the end users were expecting a big change in the UI, a friendly, easy to use UI. Now, with that change comes a challenge, which is the learning aspect of it. For someone who's probably a young person, or maybe someone who's tech savvy, the change or transition will be easy. But for someone who does not have a lot of experience and just is accustomed to using a specific UI, there would be a learning curve involved. So the first thing that is required for such a product or such a launch is to identify what is going to be the learning curve, and then making sure that we provide the steps beforehand so that the end user can kind of upskill himself on the new UI before we go and launch it. Now, this is done through multiple factors, phases, teasers. For an example, if I talk about the latest launch, Samsung is going to launch Samsung S24 Ultra, which is their latest flagship phone. Now, before they launch it, they're telling us that there will be an update on the camera module, that AI will now be able to kind of recognize and optimize the zoom on its own. Now, in order to prepare the end, so before they kind of launched the product, what they did was they released 3 teasers, 3 videos, each of less than 1 minute, wherein they showed that you just have to go to the camera module, select the AI feature, and that's it. So they are kind of prepping their end consumer right from the start so that they don't have any expectation deviations.
Yes.
So prepping is important. And being, so again, I can go on this topic for a really, really long time, but in the interest of time, I would kind of summarize my thought process on this. It's pretty simple. In order to identify how you're going to improve the customer experience, it's important to identify what is the expectation, pull it, and then set out exact measures through which you will not just contain or improve, but you will also do random checks, samplings, or probably customer feedback in order to identify what's going wrong. So it's going to be a mix of all of them: pre-preparation, then continuous improvement, which is a regular activity across all businesses, and of course, it's always going to be the third and the most important factor: feedback driven. Feedback driven should be a lesser priority, primarily because if a customer is able to feel the change, or if they're able to experience some hassle, then that's the bottom line view. That's a problem.
Yeah.
So the major factor that we as an organization, and every organization rather, kind of focuses on is pre-preparation and continuous enhancement / improvement. And of course, then keeping a check on the customer behavior.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good point. And this is applicable for a lot of different industries, right? What we do, because you have to ultimately understand what the customer expectations are, what exactly, there may be some wish list, there may be some must, there may be some burning issues. So it is important to know upfront, and then go prepared, and then so at least start with the burning, and then the other important one, and then the the good to have the other requirements, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks so much, Karan. So next, Vinay, so we'll go to you. Often you don't get to have a conversation with your customers to understand their needs. However, as a business, you base it on the demography and offer it. For instance, look at the level of personalization that Amazon and Netflix offer. They are based on the demography and customer preferences. Could you share an example of how your organization tailors its products and services to specific customer segment to enhance their experience and meet their expectations?
Yeah. So while Uttamam was introducing me, I come from a travel technology background, and also a customer service background, which dovetails with what Karan spoke. So when it comes to demography, I think data is king. Everybody needs to work with data. Not many years back, we used to listen to customer calls. We used to look at the transaction details. We used to go after hundreds of lines of information which was there in the CRM to find out really why it took so much of time to close a particular case or probably provide a resolution. Today, it's all about data, which comes out automatically through your own BI tools, which says that these were your areas of opportunity, and this is what you could have done better. Now, when it comes to demography, obviously you need customer segmentation. Okay. And in our kind of business, when you look at travel, for example, you will have various kinds of travel. There is a travel which is mostly called VFR, which is called visiting friends and family in the industry. For example, in the US, you currently have hundreds and thousands of Filipinos who visit their country once a year. How do you know what their requirements are? How do you know that they typically like to fly from Los Angeles to a city called Manila or to a city called Cebu? Now, there is enough and more data which is available for you from your prior reservations or from your travel agencies, because we are in the segment of B2C, B2B, B2E. And there we get a lot of this information where customer demography is available to us. So when we look at these potential customers who have visited us, looked at the opportunity of traveling in a particular time of the year, typically Christmas is the time of the year when everybody loves to get home because it's lull time in the US for the Filipinos to not be doing much of work, but coming back home to family. That is the catchment area which data drives for us to really give them some great deals, great offers, return flights, hotels if they need to stay one day before they catch their next flight to a smaller town in the small island of Philippines. So we have AI-driven tools which also throw such kind of offers to these customers, which makes it easy for them to take a decision because it gives a comparison very easily as to what is best for them. Because when you push a customer to go to, let's say, 5 different websites or 7 websites to choose from, then what happens is they get confused. So they don't know what is good for them at times. Of course, people become extremely smart. They know how to operate when compared to a few years back. But now if you throw the right kind of information to the customer, they also identify you as an honest supplier, because you can't always be saying, I want to make money off my customer. Yes, we are in the business of making money. There's no doubt about it. But you need to make money the right way. And you need to be presenting the right facts to the customer. And that is what drives, some of us to use data extensively to throw information for them to make use of it quickly, and turnaround times and our look to book ratios also improve in that bargain. So they look at us and then they book with us. That is what drives home the point, that always look at data when it comes to customer. Whether it's feedback surveys, whether it is NPS, or whether it is any other mechanism to look at customer related information. But without data, I think getting a demography is also a big ask if you don't have data. So those are things from.
Thanks, Vinay. So as I highlighted, the beginning of the conversation, right, the Nielsen study reporting, 92% of consumers trust recommendations from family and friends, right? That is astonishing, right? Fact. So, that goes to say, how important it is, to be able to give that kind of a aha moment, right? So that takes us a long way, right? So that gets replicated, and it gets only better from there, right? So thanks. So now let's go to Pramod. One of the key pillars of customer satisfaction is undoubtedly customer service and support. Can you share how your organization views the role of customer support in shaping satisfaction levels, and the strategies you have implemented to measure it? See if if you can give some specific examples.
Well, to begin with, I personally believe that customer care as a function is a treasure chest full of information and capabilities to enhance customer experience through product. Unfortunately, large teams that I have worked with or eventually seen in my peer group try to go on a treasure hunt away from their own customer care team to figure out what kind of a product to build. I think as I explain you very briefly as to how the customer support teams or customer care teams here help build that experience with the customer, I wanted to quickly walk you through on the ethos of how we are trying to build the product here. I think whenever a new product person from the technology product side steps foot in our team here, we give them like a one-liner which says, when you build a product, treat it like a joke, such that if you have to explain it too much to any user, it's probably not that good. So when it comes to building products, we want them to be supremely user-centric. And to enable that, anybody who walks in has a very deep enmeshing with the customer care team here. Now, how does the customer support team enhance and contribute to the to improving the products here. We have a direct channel established with the the customer support team here. We have monthly data that we get. These are the direct feedbacks that we receive from customers. So we receive like a direct feedback. There's a direct channel of input from the customer care team back to the product development team every month about what the customers are saying about our product. Along with the customer care team, we have the marketing teams also contributing. We also have surveys that are driven by the customer support team, by the product team, directly reaching out to our end users and getting in the feedback from them about how they're feeling about the product, what can be improved, where are the typical grievances. One very critical aspect for us is people who report cases outside of our ecosystem to be maybe like the consumer forum or the Reserve Bank of India. So we have like a monthly call with these forums to understand where we can do better, not just as a product, but overall as an organization. So that is that's another way in which we do reach out and help through the customer care team build products. But the most important part here, as Vinay was saying, is data. Not just the data that is shared by the customer support team, but a general engagement data from the customer, usage data from the customer. I think what we have done here is we've largely enmeshed the customer support team and the product team along with the marketing function. Anywhere there is a customer touch point, we are ensuring that there is always a feedback that we receive directly or indirectly. When I say directly, for example, in the core collection process, so in case there's a customer who has not paid their loan EMIs on time, eventually we do give them a phone call or we send somebody to collect the money to them. Every time such kind of an engagement happens, the product definitely touches base with the product, with the customer, to get in a feedback as to how your interaction was. Can we do something better for you? Because we don't treat collections as a process where we're entitled to get money back from a customer, but we treat it as a regular engagement wherein at the end of it, we still have a feedback. So that's one example of getting a direct feedback. An example of getting an indirect feedback is typically when we acquire customers through different channels. We are tracking their journeys. As Vinay very interestingly mentioned a funnel casually, look to book. For us, it's sign up to eventual disbursement of our product with the loan. So from sign up to disbursement, what is the data? Where are we seeing the customer drops? What are the reasons for those drops? Is it user experience? Is it some kind of underwriting that we can do better? Is it some kind of policy checks that are barring the users from eventually consuming our product? So these are funnels that we look at every single day. There's no member of the product team ever starts their day without opening their data panel and quickly looking at their relevant data points, their relevant funnels to see if there is a customer drop. Is there a spike of customer grievance in some cases? Is there a spike of certain kind of tickets that the customer care team is receiving? So data being the center of it all. What we try to do is at any touch point that the customer has with our product, through direct or indirect means, we try to get a feedback from the customer stating how their experience was. And that is one extreme ethos or extreme approach that has helped us stay very close to our customers and their true emotions. At the same time, through the customer care team, who centrally holds all of these direct, indirect feedback mechanisms, ensure that there is a contribution, not just to serve the customer, but also inputs to improve the product, which will satisfy the customer.
Okay. Yeah, staying close to the end customer and collecting the information is key. But then the interesting fact is, Pramod, so since you are into the B2C, you are not talking about 100, 1,000, right? You're talking about millions, right? Potentially. So
absolutely.
So how do you filter them out? How do you decide? Go about this survey and picking up the information, and how do you understand going about that? I'm just curious about that.
I think segmentation or cohortization of different kind of customer behaviors, engagements is crucial here. So when you cohortize something, there is very easy to it's quite easier to bring out a stratified sample set where you can drive these kind of engagements with the customers to capture feedback. But when I say indirect feedback, even if the customer base was to go into billions, the data tools will very clearly tell me where the drop off is happening. For indirect feedback, the number, the volume doesn't really matter. You can look at data, look at events, understand the typical behavior of your customer to do relevant improvements on the product. But for direct feedback, it is always about smart segmentation of customers. For example, if we look at demography by segmentation, we can look at how are certain geographies in India doing when it comes to consuming our products, retaining on our products, geographies, age groups, salaried versus non-salaried, etc. So you can always identify these cohorts to touch base with personalized communication to get back feedback.
Okay.
Reach out to everybody, just pick out your sample set.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's a good a few pointers there. Okay, so now let's move on to the next discussion point. So this one, so I would like to get input from all three of you on this one. Customer experience is the responsibility of every function in your organization. Do you follow any guiding principles in your organization that customer satisfaction ahead of everything you do? How do you empower your people in delivering them?
I can go first.
Sure.
I think customer experience, customer satisfaction, I think all of us have this core relationship which we have in our own company, wherein some of us are customers, some of us are suppliers to each other. So it starts all from there. There is this one very difficult aspect in the industry where we have our employees who are brought in cabs. Okay. And in large cities, cab delays are something which is inevitable, right? And when these cabs come in late into a particular shift, it impacts the business.
Yes.
The business was supposed to commence. There was somebody who was supposed to leave. He has not been able to leave on time. This new person who comes to the workplace is agitated because he's late, he's missed the briefing, or he has to just go straight to the floor because he has no time. So what happens is here the supplier becomes the transport team and the customer is nothing but the agent. Because at the end of the day, if you are going to put a disgruntled employee onto a chat or a calling profile, they are not going to be happy jumping on to taking up a headset, putting it on their headset, and boom, you get your first call as soon as you sit on the chair. Now, that is how we drive customer satisfaction with the culture that each of you is either a customer or a supplier to each other. So it starts from everybody, including the security guards, for example. There are security guards who have to do their due diligence, right, in the organization. Now, a lot of us feel that what they sometimes tell us to do is offensive in nature, but that cannot be the case. So we try to give this example to everybody as a culture in the organization, that you have to treat each of us as a customer and a supplier. That is how at the end of the day, you will be also dealing with your customer, which is why what we've done in ops, we have very less calling or inbound calling or outbound calling in our business because we're more tech-enabled. But even in the calling profiles, there is this traditional trend, which is there is what is called as average handle time, which is very crucial for business. So what we do is we don't push our agents or our calling profile employees to really go after average handle time, wherein somebody is swearing down them, at the clock, as the clock strikes 4 minutes or 5 minutes, somebody's saying wrap up, even though you've not given a first call resolution. Because he's going to call you back again. That's going to cost you more. Rather than that, spend 2.5 minutes more or 3 minutes more, close the call. The customer feedback, like what you said, a large number of customers actually come back to you because you provided them with a resolution. And the other aspect is, one is average handle time. Second is there's a lot of cost involved in our business when you fail to live up to your commitment. Because there is something which you have to eat in terms of dollars or rupees or whatever the currency you're dealing in, to render customer satisfaction at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's what we call as doing as cost of doing business.
Yeah.
So we don't shirk from offering something to the customer, to pacify them, which they could possibly use for their next travel or trip. Or probably if they say, I'm not going to be traveling anytime soon for less than a year, we actually offer them whatever they requested for. Because we know that good word of mouth is going to go around and come back to me, because somebody is going to tell somebody that go to these guys, they do a fair job in terms of providing you with great customer satisfaction.
Yeah.
It started from the cab guys, ended up with my employee who gave great customer satisfaction to our end customer. That's how we drive the culture, and the circle gets completed. We call it the circle of life for customer satisfaction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So good. Very interesting. Looking at it. Yeah.
From
Thanks.
the lens of building a product, Vinay Uttaman, there's one thing that we practice here. What we typically, whenever we develop anything on our product, is one golden rule, right? It has to be simple to understand. And if the end user can understand your product and take the right decision, they would not need any customer support.
Correct.
In case they encounter anything that they are unclear about on the product itself should be able to solve it for them proactively. Then if the product is still not able to solve it for you, comes the third step, which is your customer care.
Okay.
And that is the core principle with which we've always asked our product teams to build products, features, whatever they want to on the app. No matter what the eventual KPI is, maybe it conversion, retention, acquisition, etc. This has to be the core binding philosophy.
Okay.
Over and above that, now slightly drab, boring answer, but we have to do it. Customer care sees great churn. If you know, there's like a 15% attrition at an average quarterly attrition you've seen in the industry. Now, how do we ensure that there is a high level of customer satisfaction amongst these attrition? Simple, through setting up right processes, which are empowered by the policies of code of conduct, fair practice code, voice of customer, and eventual audit. So there is a very strong mechanism in place. In IT, what we empower is every call. Now we're trying a technology where every call made by an agent or received by an agent can get smartly analyzed without any human intervention and audit.
Yes.
That can give us a beautiful output of how adhering someone was to the script, how polite someone was, what were the keywords, what were the intentions, what was the range of emotions in the call, and give you a score. And all of that feeding back into agent training, saying, these X number of agents need more empathy in their dialogue. These Y number of agents need more assertion. These Z agents need product training. So we're trying to now embed technology and make these processes even deeper of auditing, of ensuring there's a high quality on code of conduct and the typical empathy that a customer care has to show for the end user when they reach out. So two things, just to summarize. One, the ethos of how we build product, the core principles, no matter what we do. And two, when it comes to pure play customer care with the high churn, with the repeatability of knowledge that needs to be put in, good processes, policies, and some experiments around what AI, as we dare say, is able to achieve.
Okay. Thanks, Pramod.
As really well put by both Pramod and Vinay. Of course, ethos matter. So I'll start off with the kind of talking about the baseline, which is every organization, no matter whether that organization is building a product or it's providing service or it's just in the distributorship, works on creating a set of ethics or a set of probably you can verbiages that define them. Like Nike, just do it, right? Something that talks about the company, because that builds the brand and the brand identification and that sort of semi-trust in people, right? If they see a value that they think they would want in their everyday interaction, they would want to their interest would be piqued, right? So what we as an organization, and rather I've seen a lot of organizations now move into this sphere is that organizations are now focusing on creating customer-oriented roles. So you will see customer success managers popping up, customer service or success executives, researchers coming up. And this is a new venture. It's been 1.5 years since this has kind of hyped up, right?
Yeah.
So what I've seen is that the baseline for all of these roles is based on the THE, which is the formula. What that stands for is transparency, helpfulness, and empathy. These are the three baselines for every interaction, no matter who the end customer is, right? It could be an employee, it could be anyone who's probably buying a product from you or whosoever, right? The idea is if you're able to deal, so the base principle of every business is at some point of time, there would be a downfall. When I say a downfall, I'm talking about there would be some error that will come in.
Yeah.
Something would go wrong. That happens, and it's applicable to life as a whole itself, right? So what matters or what would actually help you keep the trust in people is if is the way you are able to deal with that fluctuation, that problem, right? So to tackle it, you have to be transparent that what, we saw this happen, we are looking into it and we'll fix it. Then comes helpfulness, going out of your way. For an example, I don't know if any of you own Mahindra vehicles, but Mahindra, when they launched XUV 700, they had to recall thousands of vehicles so that they could kind of fit in or change the equipment. So there was some fault with, I remember, the carburetor or whatsoever, right? They recalled a lot of vehicles. That same goes to balancing. But when they did that, they did not say, you know what, bring your car, there's a problem, we'll fix it. They told you, they called every customer specifically and said, hey, you know what, we have identified this problem. It's not a big concern, but as a precaution, we want to replace it for you. As an add-on, we'll give you probably 6 months of additional service on your Adreno dashboard subscription service, right? So the idea is going out of your way to help it while being transparent and also empathizing. Now, empathy is a bucket that comes down to the end interaction agent, I would say. So the organization will always tell you deal with empathy, but it's the end guy who's interacting with the customer who will be able to either replicate it or give a bad experience. So it's important for people to be trained on what empathy is and how. So empathy is a very big module in itself, but in essence, it refers to you listening to what the end user is saying, and not just listening, understanding what his problem is, what problem he may face. For an example, if you recall a car for 5 days, he probably will have a lot of increase in the expenditure of cabs, right? So you got to understand what his problem statement is, and if in case you see that you can help them, probably if somebody's wife is pregnant, right, and they need to drive their wife to the doctors and all of that, you can maybe provide them based on the case-to-case scenario. You can maybe provide them with a replacement vehicle for that time being, right? So empathy, of course, is important. And as a whole, what I would kind of summarize this at is, as organization, and this is an example from my current organization, right? We identified that the end interaction agent is the key to fixing any misses that may happen. And that is why we designed and we've been working on MK Smart Speech platform. So what happens with that is anytime any call comes in, the agent who's interacting with the end consumer, his tone is being recorded and analyzed and scored against specific buckets. For an example, in this segment, his empathy is 79%, close to what we need. Confidence with a confidence level of this percentage. Similarly goes with helpfulness, smiling, angry. And at the same time, we are not just gauging the agent, we are also recording the customer sentiment. So that means the customer is 98% angry throughout the call. That means that this is a critical case and that we need to follow up. So these cases are being internally flagged and then addressed separately by people who are specifically trained on dealing with complex situations. So I think this bucketization is important, because while empathy would be trained to thousands of people, at the end of the day, there will be a certain set of people who will replicate it much better than others. And it's important for us to create targeted team and help them transition or take care of the cases wherein customers are probably getting impacted a lot. I think that's
that makes sense. Actually, that's a good point, actually. So like a lot of different ways of looking at it and a lot of important points, like you all three of you brought up for this question. This is such a power packed points actually. So the last discussion points, so we are coming to, which is so this also, all three of you can help us understand this. So can you give some pointers on how to make customer satisfaction a priority for every organization? Maybe a couple of tips that have worked for you in your organization.
Just quote one, and then probably we can do the entire panel. We'll definitely pitch in. The idea is what I strongly feel is that while we know what's right and how it should happen, we often as human beings we don't probably put that much importance on it until it has happened to us. So, for an example, if I have been starving for 5 days, I would understand what starving feels like. But if somebody tells me starving is hard, I would probably understand it to maybe 5%. So, what
Yeah.
I strongly believe, and this is only for from my perspective, is that it is important for the organization to understand and to do a thorough, not just a role play, but probably a situation based handling and
Yeah.
train their people as to, put them in situations like, for an example, use this product for 5 days and then maybe, do a small kind of takeout session that, how about and this is something that people do with their kids, that for 5 days they'll let them use the phone and then for 1 hour they'll completely restrict it and then they'll show you that, this 1 hour you have been helpless, you have been ranting, you have been doing this and all of that. But at the end of the hour, you had this hopefulness coming in, right? That means somewhere you're getting addicted to it. So
Yeah.
addiction, if you tell them, they will not be able to understand. But if they experience it real time, I think that helps a lot. So as organizations, it's important to not just put emphasis on what customer success or customer experience actually is, but to also bring in during the training phase itself to bring in examples via slideshow, via videos, whatsoever, that showcases what happens when customer success or customer experience goes wrong. And how can an agent trigger that, or how can anyone trigger that, right? If you see someone being, for an example, we scroll a lot of Instagram and all of that, and we see in third person what's going on in a video. If we as third person review any content whatsoever, we tend to make better judgments. If
Yeah.
I'm in the situation and I'm angry, I may not make the right decision.
Yeah.
But if I'm looking at someone who's getting angry, I would know that, this statement would have been avoided. So
Yeah.
similarly, when it comes to customer experience, it's important to bring in situations and discuss them and also talk about what could have been a better way to handle it.
Yeah. Mhm.
That gets everyone's mind going.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
I
Yeah.
have one somber point and one happy ideal point. I'll start with the somber one first.
Okay.
At our organization, we have a zero tolerance policy when it comes to bad behavior with the customer.
Okay.
The collections team or be it the customer care team. And there, as I told you, that there's a continuous audit on everything. So anything, there are different categories defined of, a bad conversation with the customer. And depending on what kind of a category breach a specific conversation may have had, there are relevant repercussions, not just for the caller, for the specific individual who interacted with the customer.
Yeah.
Also their immediate supervisor who is responsible to mentor them, and their supervisor who's supposed to own the overall KRA of good customer service.
Okay. Okay.
So that is something that we've implemented and that gets executed every day whenever it's called for. Now towards the happy point, and something that I personally really endorse anywhere I work, is that every business function in the organization should have some active channel which directly connects them with the customer. I've
Okay.
seen far too many examples where certain teams sit in their plush glass windowed offices trying to figure out what is best for the user and what needs to be done next. That culture needs to be killed and nipped at its bud. We need to establish a direct connect with every single vertical to the end customer. That direct connect can be through visits on the field to actually interact with the customers, focus group conversations. I've seen CEOs and CXOs from my previous organization where I worked. They used to go out there. It was a B2B, and we were into school ed tech. They used to visit schools every month. Every business leader had a KRA to visit at least 2 schools, which were at least 500 to 1,000 kilometers away from their base offices.
Okay.
every team member at a separate at a specific leadership role had an obligation, and part of their KR is to go and visit schools at least once a quarter.
Okay.
That does is it brings you truly close to your customer. I think one thing that we miss about empathy is we always call out that empathy is uh, walking into someone else's shoes. But to
Yeah.
walk someone else's shoes, you need to first remove your own shoes.
Yeah.
And that's something that we forget to do. And that
Yeah.
is something that I really personally endorse and stress on, that every business function needs a direct channel to your end customer. And if you have that, you will truly understand what the customer seeks. And through all of the good things that you have done and you want to do, you'll be able to deliver policies, processes, and eventual business roadmaps which give you good customer satisfaction.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point, actually. Yeah. Yeah.
An excellent point, rather.
Yeah.
One thing I would kind of add on to it, since everything is now going online and a lot of IT industry, software-based companies are, booming. That also includes AI industry that has popped up since
Yeah.
2022.
Yeah.
What I've seen is that all of these organizations are now very focused on being close to the customer. And
Yeah.
I'll quote an example. If I talk about Adobe, which is a software company that makes Photoshop, Premiere, and all of that, they have a very strong Adobe Forums portal wherein all of their end consumers, customers interact and let their feedback be known to everyone. And along with that, actual employees from Adobe, that also goes up to the level of CXO, right? Interacts with them.
Okay.
And therein, before they're launching a product, they send the beta update and they tell you in the forum that, XX employee from Adobe will post that we are thinking of launching this feature. What do you think? And then the community then answers, and it's not a restricted platform. And that's a
Yeah.
great way to interact for businesses that are not traditional brick and mortar, methodology. So I think that's a very good, way forward, and probably a basic for every organization to kind of indulge in.
Yeah. Yeah. That's more direct and raw, right? So you're staying connected to the target. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. How about you, Vinay? You want to add anything?
Yeah, I think Karan and Pramod cited some fantastic examples for all of us to, I would say, imbibe, take a hard look at how we manage customer satisfaction in our respective business environments.
Yeah.
I think a few things which probably we also need to introspect is when we select people to work for our customers, how are we selecting them in the first place?
Yeah.
Do they come with a strong hint of customer satisfaction goals in their minds? What do they feel about the customer who they are going to be working with in times to come in your organization once you select them and then you train them?
Okay.
I think a lot of us are in the rush, to hire talent. And there's always this mad rush to hire talent from competition.
Yeah.
Now, when you hire talent from competition, there are times when people come with a lot of baggage as to how they've handled customers there vis-a-vis how they compare your customers to be once they hit the floor. Now,
Yeah.
we've tried to go away from that model because removing that baggage is a huge task for the training team or the ops team on the ground. So
Yeah.
sometimes it makes it worth the while to spend that 5 days extra or 10 days extra in soft skills training, and then bring a brand new, fresher kind of a person who's moldable, and then train them because they have a better mindset to service your customers.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very fun, actually. Very interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Because cost of training is very important. Cost of hiring and training is a very key metric for at least the outsourcing industry, and it hurts them. I know that. But,
Yeah.
it comes with a lot of baggage. And I have faced it in my past life when I was looking after outsourcing. I don't do the same thing now in a captive environment, because here I can afford to kind of, bring the right quality of people. And I don't compete to bring people with ready-made skill sets. I
Yeah.
don't do it anymore. It worsens my problem if we tend to put our talent management team under pressure to bring such kind of talent. So
Talent. Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
one small cue which probably adds to your customer satisfaction scores and retention scores.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Because these are the small things that can make a big difference, right? So yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So with that, like, we are coming to the end of the discussion point. So thank you so much, Vinay, Pramod, and being with us, today, and taking time from your busy schedule, it's been an honor, to have all of you, Karan, looking forward to be talking to you guys, not just on the panel, individual other interviews and other interactions also, which we are planning in the future. So so we'll be in touch, and thank you so much for all your time and everything. So
Needless to say, very, very humbled to be a part of this conversation here. I think being in Uttamam, being in your esteemed company, Vinay, who has decades of experience from around the world, Karan, who has some amazing ideas and so full of energy.
Yeah.
I think it's an absolute pleasure. It's amazing to hear about all of the perspectives that were shared in the conversation. And in fact, I'd be very looking forward to having some kind of forum where I can meet all of you again, and Uttamam, you again in person, and Karan,
yeah,
you in person for the first time. Absolutely looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Pramod. Yeah.
I absolutely echo these sentiments from Pramod, and I also, I feel very, I would say, probably blessed, definitely, and also honored to be here and being able to talk to so many esteemed people. When I Pramod, Ottoman, I I know for a fact that you guys have seen more winters when it comes to the industry, the changes and all of that. But I hope to continue, interacting with you guys in the future and kind of looking to build something together.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Uttamam, for organizing this. It's
Sure.
been a privilege for some of us to be on this panel. Always love to speak about customers. They give us salary checks every month.
Yeah.
So we better take care of them. And that's something which the balance 28 people on this forum are also doing, I'm sure, finding ways and means of really trying to please their customers at any given point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks so much, Vinay. Thanks, Karan. Thanks, Pramod.
Thank you, everyone. Very nice.
Yeah. Have a good evening. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.